Save the date. The Nats Chat end-of-year podcast party will be Friday night, October 10th at Walters. Start time is TBD.
A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats. It only feels extravagant.
The 1-0. Swing a high drive, right field deep. Castellanos going back to the track, looking up. This game is tied. It's a home run for Daylen Lile. Over the big out-of-town scoreboard at right center. The Nationals 2 and the Phillies 2. Schwarber homered against Jose Ferrer on opening day, and he's not stopped homering. The 1-0. Swing a high drive, deep right field. Way back it goes, and it is long gone into the second deck. Phillies 5, Nationals 2. Schwarber, number 43, absolutely destroyed a hanging slider from Pilkington.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who is at Nationals Park. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. We by now are used to the fact that the Philadelphia Phillies feature 3 prominent ex-Nats in Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, and Kyle Schwarber. Those 3 guys on Friday evening made for the numbers 1 through 3 batters in the Phillies lineup, Turner, Schwarber, Harper. And those 3 guys on Friday evening went a combined 5 for 13 with 2 home runs, a double, 2 singles, 2 walks, and 2 stolen bases. A 6-2 loss for the Nats to the Phillies at Nationals Park in Game 2 of a 4-game series. The Nats in MLB's 2025 regular season fall to 49-73. The Phillies now are a National League East best 70-52. You can hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website you could check out too, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can buy a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. And we appreciate the support very much. Nats starting pitcher MacKenzie Gore, he on Friday evening had a really bad first inning, and then it was great. And so he ended up being good for a second consecutive start off a 4-start slump. But Mark, the Nats and Phillies, each team had 6 hits in this game, but the Phillies had 3 run-scoring extra base hits, 2 by Bryce Harper, 1 by Kyle Schwarber.
So, I don't know, Al, am I allowed to actually say I thought this was a relatively encouraging game for the Nationals? And the reason I say that is that MacKenzie Gore, after that initial really sloppy first inning, and it wasn't just him, it was the defense behind him, but he got over that and was outstanding the rest of the way and got him all the way through 6. And the at-bats, I know there was only 2 runs and I think it was only 4 hits off Zack Wheeler, but they put together some of the best at-bats I've ever seen from them against that guy who has been a workhorse and has pretty much dominated them for several years now. And they get to the 7th inning and they're in a position to win the game. It's 2-2. I think there was a lot of encouraging stuff about that. Now, the problem is, you knew this all along, even on a best case day where everyone is available, you're still asking your bullpen to somehow close that out. Well, they didn't even have that in this case because Cole Henry wasn't available. Jose Ferrer, I guess he potentially was available for a save situation, but they weren't going to use him anything other than that. And so if you're Miguel Cairo, you know what you have left to work with. And it's disappointing that it worked out the way that it did, but it's hard for me at this point to get that worked up about rookie relievers who are not really projected to be a big part of the future, giving up 2 mammoth home runs to Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper. Yeah, it would have been lovely to win the game, but I actually think what they did in the first 6 innings, under the circumstances, I actually thought it wound up being a fairly positive night for them. Is that wrong of me to have that kind of mindset?
You know, at this point, we're so desperate for positives. I don't blame anyone for taking any positives out of anything at this point with this Nats season. You know, if this was the COVID-shortened season, you could say, hey, 6-7 innings, that might make for the entirety of a ball game. Unfortunately, or I guess you might say very fortunately, we're no longer in that circumstance. The Nats end this game just at 2 runs. just the 6 hits, 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. The Nats could have scored a whole lot more than just the 2 runs. So the 6 hits were a home run, 2 doubles, and 3 singles. The Nats did work 3 walks. But to Mark's point, Zack Wheeler, so he's having another terrific season. 2 runs in 5 innings, 6 strikeouts. But the Nats did do a really good job of making him work. 97 pitches he lasted for just the 5 innings. We'll get to MacKenzie Gore. He certainly labored in his first inning, but he then was very pitch efficient after that. And Wheeler ended up not being pitch efficient at all. 97 pitches over 5 innings, albeit 5 innings in which he allowed just 2 runs and had 6 strikeouts.
Right. And so, yes, it would have been great if they could come through a couple more times, runners in scoring position, as you said. There were opportunities to do more damage, of course. He is still one of the best pitchers in the league. And I was just impressed with the quality of some of the at-bats from their young guys against somebody like that to make him work to that extent. He rarely doesn't get through 6 innings. That's his standard is 6, 7, even 8. For them to get him to a point that he was out after 5, I thought that was a really nice job on their part. There was a 12-pitch at-bat from Josh Bell. It ended in a ground out, but you built up that pitch count, really made him work. A lot of foul balls along the way. James Wood, 8-pitch walk to start the game. Daylen Lile somehow getting to a splitter that was down and in and hammering it to right center for a home run. There was some good stuff in there. And the fact that they got him out after 5, now they didn't do much against the Phillies bullpen as it turned out, but if you're going into a game against Zack Wheeler, your strategy has to be work him as best as you can, try to scratch out a few runs and get him out of the game as early as you can. And they did that in this case. So I give credit to a lot of the guys in the Nats lineup for the quality of at-bats they put together against one of the game's best.
You mentioned Daylen Lile, so he was the Nats starting left fielder in this game. We're seeing more of James Wood as a DH these days now with Dylan Cruz back. Lile, the Nats starting left fielder, number 6 batter, 1 for 4 with that solo homer, a 1-run fourth, a 2-out solo homer to right field to tie the game at 2. I've been noting this. Lyle is killing it this month. He's having a really good August. Your Dylan Lyle slash line now for this month of August, batting average 319, on base percentage 360, slugging percentage 489. We talk about wanting to see young players emerge and do well as this season goes on. Right now, Daylen Lile is capitalizing on his opportunity. He's having one of the best months of any Nats player so far this month.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a point not that long ago that I was even suggesting that maybe he should be the odd man out to go down when Dylan Cruz came back, and based on his struggles defensively in right field and just the idea that, Robert Hassel needed to get more playing time, that we had seen more of Lyle at this point, but you got to make sure that you still see Hassel. Well, the move they made, and I know we didn't get to talk about it, but if you want to bring it up later, I have my own thoughts on the Nathaniel Lowe DFA. What that did is it opened up exactly what they did in this game, and that is you can move Wood to DH, put Lyle on left, and now both he and Hassel can start the game. And so that was good to see. He has stepped up a lot. He has shown not just the ability to hit for average, but to hit for some power as well. He's not a big guy. When you see him physically, you don't necessarily think power hitter, but he's got a really quick, powerful swing. He runs the bases extremely well, so doubles and triples are natural for him. And in this case, as you saw, he got a hold of one and hit it out of the park for the home run. There's been a lot to like. If he can just clean up the defense, maybe that's a lot to ask, but if it's one or the other, I'd rather have a guy have to fix his defense than his offense. And his offense has certainly been good enough to suggest that he should be a part of this thing moving forward.
Well, and maybe as we talk about, with this abundance of outfielders, one or more serving as a DH with some frequency, maybe Lyle is a guy who has to DH at times because the defense just isn't so great. But the offense lately has been terrific. Now, no Nats player in this game had more than 1 hit. James Wood is a starting DH and number 1 batter, 0 for 3 with a walk. He did strike out a couple of times. I mentioned the Nats having 2 doubles, so those were by C.J. Abrams and Luis Garcia Jr. I've brought this up. I don't want to keep just, smacking the dead horse here, but Brady House did not start again. Paul DeJong was the Nats starting third baseman and number 4 batter. He went 1 for 4. Brady House has started just 2 of the Nats' last 5 games. What are we doing here, man? Brady House is supposed to be their third baseman of the future. Whatever Paul DeJong is doing, why isn't House playing more? What do you think the thinking is internally with this team? He's supposed to be the guy at third. There's no excuse for him starting just 2 out of 5 games in the midst of a lost season here at this point.
Yeah, it's probably a reflection of what DeJong has done, for better or worse. He's had a really nice run here, and you just kind of want to go with it. And, Is it worth it to throw Brady House out there against Zack Wheeler? Maybe. See how he does with it. The offense has been pretty limited from him so far. It's been disappointing. The defense has been outstanding. Do you throw him out there against Wheeler? Are they maybe trying to find some better matchups for him against more lefties? I get that if it's just like one game out of the 5 that you said, okay, it's a bad matchup, let's not start him. But as you said, it's only 2 out of 5 that he has played, and that's not ideal. I really hope we see him on both Saturday and Sunday. That's not really the way to go about doing this. Maybe, as counterintuitive as it sounds, maybe start rooting for Paul DeJong to strike out more and not hit the ball with authority and kind of force the issue so that Miguel Cairo isn't tempted to keep putting him out there.
It's funny right now with Cairo because I actually think he's doing a lot of good things. I like how bold he's been with the lineup. He's not been afraid to shake things up. I think his bullpen management, for the most part, has been quite good. What he did with Jose A. Ferrer in Game 1 of this series, I thought was great. But this Paul DeJong thing, I just don't think it is proper for this circumstance. And, I wonder what Mike DeBartolo thinks about this. I'm sure DeBartolo doesn't want to be the kind of GM, even if he's an interim guy, who tells the manager, do this, don't do that. But at some point, you do have to say, this is what is in the best interest of the ball club. And you do at times have that competing, conflicting interest of the manager wants to play for today. The GM is maybe thinking more about tomorrow. Right now, I think it is so much more about tomorrow than it is about today with this team. And what matters for tomorrow is Brady House, not Paul DeJong. We all know he's going to be gone after this season, given that he's on an expiring contract. I wonder if Mike DeBartolo would ever say to Cairo, hey, man, you need to start playing Brady House, if not on an every game basis, then close to that, because how he does his development matters so much for us moving forward.
Yeah, it is an interesting dilemma given both men's current status and position. Is that a conversation that can be had? I will say it feels to me like Miguel Cairo is trying to go all in to win as many games as he can. And I understand as a manager, that's what you're trying to do. And even in his case, if he has any visions of trying to keep the job full time, then that's probably his best path towards that, is to say in the end, hey, look, I wound up, playing almost 500 ball with this roster that you gave me. The team was better after I took over. I can understand why in his mind he's probably thinking in those terms, as opposed to, well, yeah, I'm going to sacrifice some games in the name of playing young guys who need experience for the future. Well, that's probably not going to help his cause. Now, maybe it's a lost cause anyways. And as we've discussed, the odds of him being picked as the full-time manager, I think, are pretty slim. But it does feel like things like that, things like the bullpen management, the way he's kind of gone all in to win some of these games, it does feel to me like he is managing to try to win as many games as he possibly can the rest of the way.
Yeah, and the bullpen management is fine. And like I said, I think good. And with the bullpen management, you actually are developing younger relievers with the way that Cairo is doing what he's doing. But with the lineup management, you're right now hindering the development of Brady House. And as we all have said, we need to see what this guy is. The Nats need to get a better sense of what they have and what they don't have moving forward. And you're not going to get that sense with Brady House, with him starting just 2 games in a 5-game stretch.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, that legacy continues with reimagined classic cocktails like the Keep Walkin' 18, a fresh whiskey twist on a timeless mule. Few pairings are as enduring as Scotch and golf. For cocktail recipes and more, visit JohnnyWalker.com/clubhouse. Toast the new era of golf with Johnny Walker Black Label. Shop now at thebar.com and discover inspired cocktails at JohnnyWalker.com/clubhouse. Perfect for the 19th hole or your home bar. Please drink responsibly.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
So now the count of 1-2 on Harper. Gore coming set. It's a good pitch number 7 and a swing and a line drive into right, a base hit. Turner will trot in from third. Schwarber's around second, heading for third. Harper heading for second. The throw by Cruz. It gets by the shortstop. Abrams rolling into foul ground, and Schwarber from third will come in to score. And not only the Phillies get 1 run and an RBI hit by Bryce Harper, they end up with 2 as the ball scoots away and the Phillies lead it 2-0.
MacKenzie Gore, major bright spot for the Nats in this game, and it's funny saying that off how this outing started. So Gore in this 6-2 loss to the Phillies on Friday evening, good for a second consecutive start off the 4-start slump. You start with that. His final line, 2 runs in 6 innings, 7 strikeouts. Terrific. Now, he threw 37 pitches in a very laborious 2-run Phillies first, but Gore then tossed just 54 pitches over 5 scoreless innings. He, for the game, gave up just 4 hits, which were a double and 3 singles. He issued 2 walks, a hit by pitch, and a wild pitch. He threw 91 pitches, 57 strikes, 34 balls. Gore, in the top of the first, allowed 2 runs and really could have allowed more. He, in the inning, gave up a double and a single and issued 2 walks, a hit by pitch, and a wild pitch. Also in the inning was a throwing error by right fielder Dylan Cruz on a throw to second base, and no Nats player was backing up the throw to second base. So there was sloppiness in that inning as well. But it was remarkable how this played out. Gore did not look good at all in that first inning, was not pitch efficient at all. And then like a switch was flipped, and the rest of the game, he was outstanding. And so this ends up being a very nice start for MacKenzie Gore.
Yeah, it was not his best start by any stretch, but it might have been his gutsiest start, given the way that it began, given who he was facing and how he had to get through that. The 2 strikeouts, and I get that's the bottom third of the Phillies lineup. It's Sosa and Kemp. But hey, you still had to come through with the bases loaded while throwing, into the 30s now for your pitches for the first inning. Those were big, and I think it allowed him to hit the reset button. He said he made some adjustments, didn't really reveal what that was, but he was way more in the strike zone after that. There were only 2 base runners the rest of the game against him. Both of them singles. Only one of them made it past first base. That was a big-time job by him to right the ship like that. And as we've talked so much this year, we know how good he is when he's on, like he was last time out. But what has distinguished himself, at least in the first half of this season, was his ability to still find a way in those games where he wasn't at his best. And this one absolutely qualifies. It felt like the way this game started, it felt like he was reverting right back into that slump that he was in for a month or so. And he figured it out and got out of it, and good on him, because at the end of the day, you can look at the pitching line and say, okay, maybe it was a weird path to get there, but 6 innings, 2 runs on 90-something pitches against that lineup, that's a big-time quality start from him.
You take it, absolutely. And the Nats so far in this 4-game series against the Phillies, you have what Brad Lord did on Thursday evening. You have what MacKenzie Gore did on Friday evening. The Nats starting pitching so far in this series has been quite good. And Gore has got the ERA for this regular season now down to 4.04. Psychologically, it matters, man. That ERA's got to be beneath 4. He was having such a good season. I don't want that thing above 4, and he's working toward trimming it back down. 25 starts, 4.04 ERA, 1.32 is the whip for Gore. He's at 165 strikeouts. By the way, Wheeler number 1 in the majors in strikeouts at 195. But it does feel like the Gore slump is done. It was bad for a while, but it was only 4 starts. You could accept that over the course of, a 30-plus start season. And each of his last 2 starts now, he, for the most part, has looked like the MacKenzie Gore who we had been seeing.
Yeah, I think so. The stuff was really good when you look at the rest of the game from him. It's not like he was just getting by without anything. He struck out 7 batters after that awful first inning and no more walks after the first inning as well. We saw him do this last year. It's not identical, but we did see him just when it looked like things were falling apart. He righted the ship and was really good the rest of the way. The hope would be that he does that again this year, and that there's enough season left where he really can go on a sustained run, and that we ultimately look at that month as a blip as opposed to anything more concerning than that. So you say you want the ERA under 4. I want it way under 4. I want that thing getting closer to 350 by season's end. Now, maybe that's too much to ask at this point, but I think that would go a long way because he was right around 3.9 last year, and it took a late surge on his part to get it there. I don't want to find him in that exact same position where he's got to be really good down the stretch in September just to get it under 4. I want to see it easily in the 3s, hopefully more around the middle of the 3s.
Well, the Nats bullpen in this 6-2 loss to the Phillies on Friday evening ended up being a problem, as we discussed. 4 Nats relievers combined to allow 4 runs in 3 innings. Clayton Beeter officially allowed 2 runs in a third of an inning. He would have ended up being a 4-run 7th for the Phillies, faced 3 batters, but recorded just 1 out as he issued back-to-back 1-out walks. Connor Pilkington, he officially allowed 2 runs in a third of an inning, but he was a mess in that Phillies 4-run 7th. He gave up back-to-back 2-out homers by ex-Nationals, gave up a 2-out 3-run homer by Kyle Schwarber to the second deck in right field. The homer going a projected 456 feet per Statcast, and Pilkington then gave up a 2-out solo homer by Bryce Harper to center field on a 1-2 pitch for a 6-2 Phillies lead. That homer went a projected 414 feet per Statcast. Now, Orlando Revolta was good. He tossed 1 1/3 scoreless, hitless, and walkless innings. He did do the thing that Nats relievers like to do, issued a hit-by-pitch to the first batter he faced, but Revolta then retired each of the next 4 batters he faced, and P.J. Poulin was good. He tossed a scoreless and hitless top of the 9th inning. Clearly, what went down with Pilkington stands out, and man, the season that Kyle Schwarber is having really is remarkable. You know, it's not stunning. He's an excellent hitter. We know that. We saw him really bust out with what he did here in June 2021, but Kyle Schwarber now for this regular season has 43 home runs, has an OPS of 955. As we are recording this installment of the podcast, he's 3rd in the majors in OPS. Aaron Judge is number 1. Shohei Ohtani is number 2. Schwarber is number 3. Judge and Ohtani are the 2 best hitters in the sport. After those 2, you could argue that Schwarber has been the best hitter in the sport this season. He's having that kind of a season. He's getting MVP talk, at least in the Philadelphia area and perhaps beyond there.
Oh, it was in the Washington area as well, because there were plenty of MVP chants coming from the stands. I don't think those were Nationals fans with that chant. There were a good number of Phillies fans, as unfortunately is often the case here these days. He's been outstanding. And it's impressive to see how he's really become more than just the slugger. Like, he does a lot more at the plate. He draws his walks. We know he hits the ball hard and everything else. And this is hard to hear, but this was his 58th game against the Nationals since they traded him, and his 22nd home run in 58 games, 5 of them in 8 games this season. He's a tough hitter to get out, I know, and maybe asking Connor Pilkington to have to do that is too much to ask. I want to mention, too, though, Clayton Beeter, the idea was it's the bottom of the lineup. He wants Beeter to get those 3 out, maybe face Trey Turner, the other right-handed hitter, and ideally save Pilkington for the 8th and hopefully give him a clean inning against the lefties. And Beeter faces 3 batters. He strikes out the first one, and then he walks the next 2, the 8 and 9 hitters. And now Cairo feels compelled to bring in Pilkington. Doesn't excuse he made 2 bad pitches to Schwarber and Harper. But if Beeter can just get the ball over the plate and at least force them to hit the ball, maybe he gets out of it, and it's a different conversation because Pilkington isn't entering with a jam already in the works, but maybe in theory have a clean inning, and who knows what the results would have been then.
And Schwarber coming up to hit with 2 guys on base in that spot, there was this feeling, I know how I had it, of like an inevitability of something bad is about to happen. You know, we've seen this where Schwarber homers against the Nats and does so in the latter innings of a Phillies-Nats game. I feel like that has happened so many times since Schwarber joined Philadelphia, and he comes up to bat in that spot, and you say to yourself, oh boy, here we go. And sure enough, there the ball went.
There are so many things that went wrong in July of 2021. We've gone through them over and over. There's an argument to be made that Kyle Schwarber pulling up with the lame hamstring on like July 2nd or 3rd against the Dodgers, that alone could have set everything else in motion. And if nothing else, if he doesn't do that and he stays healthy and they decide to keep him and he keeps hitting like that for them and he liked it here, that maybe there's a scenario in which they want to re-sign him and he ends up playing here instead of Philadelphia. Now, maybe that's too much to ask. Maybe the other issues all would have cropped up and he didn't want to sign here with a team that was probably heading in the wrong direction for a lot of reasons. But boy, I've thought back to that moment a lot. when he was on fire, the incredible June that he had, the crowd was loving it. He loved it here. And he pulls up lame, running the bases, goes on the IL, gets traded while he's on the IL. Everything else that went wrong that month. It's a pretty good what if Kyle Schwarber doesn't hurt his hamstring. Is there a chance that the entire fortunes of the Washington Nationals franchise are different?
We had so much fun doing the podcast in June 2021 and updating Kyle Schwarber's numbers and just him going nuclear that month. And that was the first year of the podcast. And so, we're all kind of new to this show. And I think we're all saying to ourselves, wow, this is fun. The Nats are a good team and good times are ahead. And little did we know that after that month, a whole lot would be different and a whole lot in a lot of ways would never be the same.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
2-1 pitch. Swing and a fly ball. Line drive, really right field. Back goes Castellanos, and he makes the catch for the out, and the game is over. The Phillies and Nationals, 4-game series, even at a victory apiece.
All right, I do want to ask you this. Mark Zuckerman, you can follow him on X at Mark Zuckerman. You can follow me on X at Al Galdi. You, prior to the game, posted a photo of Miguel Cairo working with Keibert Ruiz and Jose Tena at first base. Obviously, things are different now with the Nats having designated first baseman Nathaniel Lowe for assignment on Thursday. But Keibert Ruiz getting work at first base. I know a lot of times teams before games will have guys work at different positions just, for a break class in case of emergency type thing. So before we go crazy with this, I do want to ask you, is this a something or is this a nothing? Keibert Ruiz getting work at first base, in your opinion?
I don't know the full answer to that yet because that happened after we had already done our pregame with Miguel Cairo and there wasn't an opportunity to ask Keibert about it. Jose Tena was there also. It was both of them working there. Now, I think what's immediately clear is this. They just DFA'd Nathaniel Lowe. Josh Bell is their quote-unquote everyday first baseman, and maybe Paul DeJong could get some time there as well. As they look to the final 6 weeks of the season, they've got to make sure they're covered there in the event that Bell gets hurt or needs a day off or whatever else. And maybe if Keibert Ruiz is cleared to come back from his concussion, there's less potential for damage if he's not behind the plate. So maybe it's an option if you got comfortable enough there to do it. Bigger picture, I think that's really the question we're getting at here. Are they considering maybe a long-term position switch? And I don't know the answer to that, and we'll try to find out more over the rest of the weekend there. What I would say, though, is this. Keibert Ruiz, while he has his issues behind the plate, for sure, I don't know if first base really suits him that well. It requires a different kind of nimbleness than I don't know that he has. And beyond any of that, can he develop into the kind of hitter that you need to have as a first baseman? In theory, his value, the reason they signed him that big contract was that he was a solid all-around catcher who was going to hit well, but not monster numbers, and that he was a good game caller and that his defensive skills were improving. Remember, at the time, he was throwing great. He threw out a bunch of runners, was great at the pickoff throws to first base. I just don't know that if you make that move to first base, that's now an offensive position. Is he capable of doing what you need offensively to make that worthwhile when the defense is probably not going to be elite there just by the nature of who he is and his body type and everything else? So I would guess this is more of a temporary thing. It's a get through the season kind of thing. And it's a, hey, if you are cleared to come back from the concussion, maybe we'll give it a try because it's less chance of something bad happening to you there. like I said, we'll hopefully find out more in the next few days, but I'm going to guess that this is not the first step in a much larger career change for him.
Couple of thoughts. Number one, isn't it ironic? For years, we heard about Riley Adams as the Nats catcher who could end up playing some first base. A whole lot of lip service was paid to that. We never really have seen that. And now it could end up being Keibert Ruiz who ends up being the Nats catcher who plays some first base. But the other thought is this. The Nats are getting decent, if not good, offensive production from Riley Adams and Drew Millis at catcher right now. If Keibert Ruiz is cleared to come back, and hopefully he is, I mean, we're all rooting for him from a health standpoint. Personally, I don't think it should just be a given that he's handed that number one catcher job again. His performance has not warranted that. And Adams and Millis deserve to keep playing. They're doing a good job in this timeshare at catcher. And I wonder if Ruiz getting reps at first base is an acknowledgement of, it's not a given, dude, that you're going to be our number one catcher if/when you come back this season.
Yeah, I think at minimum, if he does come back, it's a timeshare at the position, both for his own health reasons and safety reasons, but also, as you said, because of what Adams and Millis as well. If you get to September 1st, you have an expanded roster. Maybe they use that for the third catcher. That opens that up. I could also see, days when somebody DHs, including Ruiz, again, take some of the pressure off him. Now, we have no idea when he's going to be cleared to come back. These kinds of things are tricky. It's not like other injuries. You can say, okay, there's a set protocol and timeline. And once he's doing this, then he's cleared to do that. And then he's going to go on a rehab assignment, et cetera, et cetera. And then he should be back. With concussions, it really is just you're at the mercy of the doctors and they go in for testing. I think it's once a week and see where things are at and then decide. Now, he's out there doing some baseball activity, so that's good. But there's really no contact at this point. I think that's the biggest concern. So it's quite possible he doesn't come back to play this year. It would be unfortunate if that were true, but I could understand if the doctors are saying it, and it's certainly not worth risking his long-term health. I could see them waiting until next year. So this may all be a moot point anyways. But if and when he does come back, I would be stunned if he comes back to be like the everyday catcher. I think it's at least a 50-50 timeshare. Maybe Mills is involved too. Maybe the DH spot is involved too. I think that's how they would treat it.
Regarding the Nats designating Nathaniel Lowe for assignment, does this say anything potentially encouraging about ownership that Mike DeBartolo got the green light to DFA the Nats' highest paid player? And we say that, half kiddingly, but half seriously. $10.3 million off him going through the arbitration process this past offseason. The money is still owed. It's not like the Nats are off the hook for that money. Does this potentially say anything, at least semi-encouraging, about the Lerner ownership group that it greenlit Mike DeBartolo DFA'ing Lowe and making it so that the Nats are paying Lowe to not play for them for the rest of this season?
The one qualifier of that, and I'm not saying I expect this to happen, but when you're DFA'd, you could be claimed by someone else or traded to someone else who then takes on your contract. I do not believe that's going to happen. We all know the reasons why that's probably not true. So yes, as we talked about the other day, thinking that is it possible that they would consider moving on from him? My biggest hangup was that the money that he's owed. And would ownership give him the green light to go ahead and say, all right, well, it's a sunk cost. We'll just go ahead and pay him for the rest of the season, even though he's not here and not going to play for us anymore. So the fact that they did say yes, perhaps a good sign of the relationship there. He was able to make a convincing argument that it really was for the betterment of the young guys as a way to open up those at-bats in the DH spot so that they can see more of the young outfielders. I think also it spoke to this, and you and Tim kind of touched on the subject, and I can share I think a little more of my own insight of this. It starts with his performance, which was just subpar. Offensively and defensively, I think it was very surprising how poor he was in the field. But I think also over the last month and a half or so, when you watched him play, and I not so much at the plate, but especially at first base and on the bases, you saw a guy who, from a distance, looked like he was not fully invested in this. The effort on plays in the field, the effort on the bases. How many times did you say to yourself, why didn't Lowe tag up on that ball? It looked like he could have taken an extra base or something like that on that. Now, I don't know if, nobody knows what's going on in his mind except for himself. But I'll just say that watching it from afar, and I wasn't alone in thinking this, there were plenty of others around the team who I think had similar observations of him. It looked like once the firings happened and once it was clear where this season was headed, that he was not as fully engaged in this as some of the other guys on the team. And so in a way, the move to being made might also have something to do with not wanting the important young players on this team to take their cues from one of the only veterans they have here if it looks like he's not giving it his all or that he's not as invested in the remainder of this season as they want their players to be.
That makes total sense. And, we talked about this on the last installment of the podcast. This was not the move that had to be made. You had a very simple, easy, and non-controversial move that you could have made, optioning Jose Tena back to AAA Rochester with him barely playing lately. The Nats instead chose this route, and I think you have to ask why. And it's not just a performance thing, because this was, we don't want you on the team anymore. That's what this was. This was, you're designated for assignment. You're gone. We're cutting ties with you. And we're still going to end up paying you more likely than not. And you have to say to yourself, what was behind that? Was it simply just performance? And I think what you just said makes a lot of sense. There was an attitude or work ethic or, clubhouse demeanor type aspect to Lowe being DFA'd. I think that makes total sense.
And make the comparison to the two veterans who are still here, were not traded at the deadline, and then were not let go. They are still here, and they're still playing, in Josh Bell and Paul DeJong. Two guys who obviously are not part of the long-term plan here, but in addition to playing well recently, I think they are viewed as guys who set a good example for the young players, and it is important. I know we've talked so much about the importance of getting as much as you can to see out of the young guys the rest of the way. This team has lacked clubhouse leadership all season long. You need a couple of guys in there who've been there, done that, to show them the right way to do it. And I'm not saying that Josh Bell and Paul DeJong on one-year deals were the right people for that, but right now it's who they have. It's really all they have from a position player standpoint. And I think it is telling that they are still here. They could have stepped in and said, hey, it's not worth giving them at-bats. They're making less money. It's easier to cut those contracts. But they wanted those two here the rest of the way and then made the decision with Lowe, who they could have brought back for another year after this, and decided, no, we're actually going to cut ties with him right now and eat that salary.
Nathaniel Lowe, grand slam on Wednesday, DFA'd on Thursday. How many times in the history of MLB has that happened, that a guy who hit a grand slam on one day got DFA'd the next day? You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. Hit us up on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Game 3 for the Nats against the Phillies in this 4-game series at Nationals Park, Saturday afternoon at 4:05. Cade Cavalli will be the Nats starting pitcher. Can he keep the good thing going? The good thing being the Nats starting pitching in this series. 2 runs in 6 innings. The final line for Brad Lord on Thursday evening and MacKenzie Gore on Friday evening. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I don't feel like we have an injury bug. We have an injury rat running around the clubhouse. So it feels like it's just biting everybody at this point in time. Yeah, this is the wrong time at a point where we're in a critical stretch here, and we're having guys dropping like flies right now. It's unfortunate. I mean, nobody's going out there trying to get hurt. We're just seeing guys get hurt for various reasons, and it's kind of a bad luck situation right now.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.